The courtroom was silent until it wasn't. A sharp, arrogant laugh broke the air, echoing off the walls of Providence Municipal Court. Every head turned. Reporters froze. Even the bailiff's pen stopped midair. Seated in the defendant's chair was 17-year-old Tyler Morrison, a boy whose smirk carried more privilege than wisdom. He leaned back, arms crossed, and looked directly at Judge Frank Caprio, one of America's most beloved judges, and then said the 5 words that would change his life forever. "You can't do anything to me." The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred, and in that silence, something powerful began to shift, because no one had ever spoken to Judge Caprio that way and walked out unchanged. Just moments earlier, Tyler had strutted into Courtroom 6 like he owned it. Designer sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. Hoodie pulled up in defiance of protocol. That trademark smirk plastered across his face. His parents sat in the front row, his mother fidgeting with her pearls, his father glancing at his Rolex with the smug confidence of a man who believed money could fix anything. To them, this was routine. Another day, another minor incident. Their son would walk away from unscathed. After all, this was the 4th time Tyler's father's law firm had smoothed over trouble. 3 previous charges, gone. But this time was different. This time, Tyler had walked straight into the courtroom of Judge Frank Caprio, a man known not just for his compassion, but for his unshakable belief in respect, accountability, and truth. As the cameras rolled, because every Caprio session was recorded for Caught in Providence, viewers at home had no idea they were about to witness a moment that would soon go viral worldwide, a moment that would remind millions that justice is not for sale. The courtroom clerk read aloud, "Case number 2024, the 27,831. The State versus Tyler Morrison." But Tyler didn't stand, didn't remove his hood, didn't show even a flicker of respect. That's when Judge Caprio spoke for the first time, his tone calm, patient, but with an undertone that only experienced court watchers recognized. "Mr. Morrison, please stand and remove your hood." Tyler lifted his chin, eyes gleaming with mockery. "Why?" "It's just a traffic ticket, old man." Gasps. Audible collective. Reporters froze mid-note. Court officers stiffened. Even Tyler's father's smile faltered, because no one in 37 years had ever dared call Judge Frank Caprio old man. And for the first time that morning, Tyler's laughter died down. He didn't know it yet, but that single careless sentence had just written the opening line of a story he'd never forget. Judge Caprio removed his glasses slowly, a gesture that millions of fans online knew all too well. Whenever he cleaned those glasses, someone was about to learn a life lesson. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply looked up and said, softly but firmly, "Mr. Morrison, let me explain something to you about respect." Tyler chuckled, leaning back even further. "Respect? Dude, my dad's firm gets me out of this stuff all the time. You'll give me community service. I'll pay someone to do it. That's how this works." His laughter filled the room again, loud, smug, and cruel. Even the stenographer paused, unsure if she'd heard right. For a moment, it felt less like a courtroom and more like a stage, and Tyler thought he was a star. But he wasn't, because as Judge Caprio stood from behind his bench, the entire atmosphere of the room changed. The cameras zoomed in. The sound of his gavel touching the desk once was enough to make everyone hold their breath. "Mr. Morrison," he said, his voice suddenly commanding the entire courtroom, "you seem to think this is your father's law firm. Allow me to correct that misunderstanding." Tyler blinked, half amused, half curious. He'd seen strict judges before, but none like this. Judge Caprio's eyes didn't waver. "You're charged with reckless driving. 85 miles per hour in a 35-mile school zone. 2 red lights. Nearly struck a crossing guard helping a 6-year-old girl. And when you were arrested, you told the officer, quote, 'My dad will make this disappear.'" Every word hit like a hammer. Tyler's grin faltered for the first time. And when Judge Caprio leaned in, voice low but filled with conviction, the air itself seemed to tighten. "You said I can't do anything to you. Is that correct?" Tyler swallowed. "Yeah, that's right." "Then listen carefully," said Judge Caprio. "Your father's not in my courtroom. His money's not in my courtroom, and his influence, most certainly, is not in my courtroom. You are. For the first time, the confident teen smirk began to fade, and that's when viewers worldwide leaned closer to their screens, because something profound was unfolding. Judge Caprio's hand hovered over the gavel, but didn't strike. Instead, he said, "Actions have consequences, Mr. Morrison, and today you're about to learn what that means." But what happened next, no one expected, because Judge Caprio didn't sentence him. Not yet. Instead, he turned to the bailiff, bringing the video. A murmur spread through the courtroom. On a large monitor, grainy footage appeared, surveillance from that same school zone. Tyler's BMW, the red lights, the terrified crossing guard diving out of the way with a little girl in her arms. The crowd gasped. "Do you see this?" Caprio asked quietly. Tyler's eyes widened. For the first time, he looked human, frightened, even. The judge continued. "That crossing guard is Mrs. Patricia Gonzalez, 64 years old. The little girl, Emma, 6 years old. Mrs. Gonzalez spent 3 days in the hospital. Emma still wakes up crying at night." And then Caprio's voice deepened, shaking with restrained emotion. "And while they were suffering, do you know what you said, Mr. Morrison? You said, and I quote, 'Great. Now I'll be late for my tennis lesson.'" The entire courtroom went still. No laughter, no movement, only the sound of Tyler's breath catching in his throat. That was the moment the world turned against him. That was the moment a spoiled boy's arrogance met the immovable wall of truth. But this was only the beginning, because what Judge Caprio would do next would not only humble an arrogant teenager, it would restore millions of people's faith in justice. The courtroom remained frozen in silence long after the video ended. Only the faint hum of the camera equipment filled the air, capturing every twitch, every tear, every moment that would soon captivate millions across YouTube and beyond. Judge Frank Caprio didn't speak right away. He let the images linger, the near miss, the frightened child, the fallen crossing guard, because he understood something few others did. Sometimes silence teaches louder than words. Then, softly, he said, "Mr. Morrison, do you see that woman? Her name is Mrs. Patricia Gonzalez. She's 64 years old and has been helping children cross that street safely for over a decade. Because of your actions, she's now recovering from a concussion and a separated shoulder." Tyler shifted in his seat, his posture shrinking. The smirk that once defined him was gone, replaced by a hollow stare. Judge Caprio continued, his voice steady, deliberate, a tone that carried both compassion and weight. "And that little girl, her name is Emma, 6 years old. She used to skip across that crosswalk every morning, waving to Mrs. Gonzalez. Now she wakes up crying at night, terrified of cars. Her parents tell me she refuses to walk to school." The judge paused, his words slicing through the air like truth through pride. "And while that child was trembling in her mother's arms, do you remember what you said, Mr. Morrison?" Tyler's throat tightened. "No, I..." Caprio lifted the police report and read aloud, his voice echoing. "Great. Now I'm going to be late for my tennis lesson." The gallery gasped. Tyler's mother pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. His father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, realizing that no amount of influence could rewrite what everyone had just heard. The judge's next words were calm, but they landed like thunder. "That, Mr. Morrison, is not a traffic violation. That is a failure of conscience." But who was Tyler Morrison, really? To the outside world, he was a privileged high school senior from a wealthy Rhode Island family, captain of his tennis team, new BMW as a birthday gift, a life filled with luxuries he never earned, and mistakes he never paid for. Each time he broke a rule, there was always a lawyer, a check, or a favor to make it go away. He wasn't evil, just untouched by consequences. Until now. And that's exactly why Judge Caprio had decided to do something different. As Tyler sat in stunned silence, the judge leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, do you know why this courtroom is filled with cameras?" Tyler hesitated, unsure if it was a trap. "For your show?" he said weakly. A flicker of a smile touched the judge's lips. not amusement, but sadness. No, Mr. Morrison. Those cameras are here so people can witness justice in its truest form. They're here so others may learn before they make the same mistake. But I'm not sure you're capable of learning yet. The young man blinked, his bravado fading with each second. You see, Caprio continued, justice isn't about punishment alone. It's about understanding. You've lived 17 years believing you're untouchable, that rules are suggestions, not boundaries. But the truth is you've been protected, not strong. You've been shielded, not wise. Today, that changes. Tyler's voice cracked for the first time. Sir, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Judge Caprio's tone remained gentle, but firm. You didn't mean to, but you did. And meaning nothing doesn't erase the harm. Responsibility isn't about intent. It's about impact. Tyler's parents shifted uncomfortably. His father finally spoke up, voice sharp and defensive. Your Honor, with respect, my son is already... Caprio raised a hand, silencing him instantly. Mr. Morrison, you've had your turn to teach him what money can do. Now allow me to show him what accountability looks like. A ripple of murmurs spread across the courtroom. Even the reporters seemed moved, pens paused, hearts stirred, because in that moment, this wasn't just a courtroom anymore. It was a classroom of life, and the lesson was about to begin. Judge Caprio turned his gaze back to Tyler. You asked me. You can't do anything to me. I'll answer that now. He stood, each movement deliberate, filled with authority and grace. I can sentence you to the maximum penalty allowed by law. I can ensure this record follows you for the rest of your life. Every college, every employer will see it. I can make you live with a title you've earned, reckless, entitled, dangerous. Tyler's chest tightened, breath shallow. But that's not what I want, Caprio said, because that won't teach you. And justice without teaching is just revenge. The judge's words cut deeper than any sentence could. Tyler looked up, tears beginning to form, but he quickly wiped them away. Still fighting, still proud. So here's what we'll do, Caprio said, lowering his tone. I'm giving you a choice. The words hung in the air like a spark before a storm. He reached for his papers. You can serve 120 days in juvenile detention, the full penalty, beginning immediately. Tyler's father jumped up. We'll appeal. Sit down, Mr. Morrison, Caprio interrupted, his voice cutting through like steel. Or your son will serve twice that for contempt. The father sat. The mother began to weep. Tyler's face turned pale. Or, Caprio continued, you can accept an alternative sentence. One that may not be as comfortable, but could change who you are forever. Every camera zoomed in. Every heart leaned closer. Tyler whispered, What alternative? And that's when the story turned. You will spend the next year at Providence Children's Hospital, Caprio said slowly. 20 hours a week, assisting in the trauma unit. You'll see the real cost of reckless driving. You'll meet children whose lives will never be the same because of people who thought rules didn't matter. A single tear slid down Tyler's cheek. He didn't even realize it was there. You'll write monthly letters to Mrs. Gonzalez and Emma's family, explaining what you've learned. Not excuses, lessons, real ones. The judge leaned back. And if you complete it with sincerity, your record will reflect growth. But if you treat it as another chore, your sentence doubles, and your driving privileges are gone until you're 25. The courtroom was breathless. Even the cameras seemed to wait for Tyler's answer. I'll do it, he said softly. I'll do the hospital work. Judge Caprio studied him for a long, heavy moment. Mr. Morrison, redemption isn't earned in promises. It's earned in effort. Every day you walk into that hospital, remember that someone almost didn't walk home because of you. Tyler nodded, eyes glistening. Yes, Your Honor. Caprio set down his gavel. Good. Then your education begins today. The sound of the gavel echoed, 1. Clean strike. And just like that, the courtroom of privilege had become a sanctuary of justice. But what happened next would shake even the strongest hearts. Because mercy was about to arrive from the unlikeliest place of all. The sound of the gavel still hung in the air like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. Tyler Morrison sat frozen, his mind spinning. The courtroom that had once felt like a stage for his arrogance now felt like a cage, not of bars, but of truth. He had just agreed to a punishment that wasn't really punishment at all. At least, not the kind he expected. It was something deeper, something that demanded he feel. But before the bailiff could escort him out, Judge Frank Caprio lifted a hand. Mr. Morrison, we're not done yet. Tyler looked up, confused. His parents turned sharply toward the bench. Caprio reached beneath his desk and pulled out a single white envelope. His voice softened. While you were waiting this morning, I received this letter. He held up, letting the light catch the handwriting. Delicate, aged, feminine. It's from Mrs. Patricia Gonzalez. The entire courtroom drew a collective breath. The same woman Tyler had nearly killed had written to the court? Judge Caprio unfolded the paper, and his voice grew quieter, carrying more weight than any sentence ever could. She writes, Dear Judge Caprio, I ask you to please show mercy. He's just a boy who made a terrible mistake. Please don't let this mistake define his entire life. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Even Tyler's father lowered his eyes. Mrs. Gonzalez, injured, hospitalized, humiliated, had asked the court to forgive. The judge continued reading. I believe in accountability, but I also believe in grace. If he learns, if he truly understands, that will mean more than any prison cell ever could. When Caprio finished, the silence was almost holy. Tyler couldn't lift his head. His chest shook. For the first time, he wasn't trying to fight the tears. Judge Caprio folded the letter carefully and placed it on the bench. That, Mr. Morrison, he said softly, is what real character looks like. That is forgiveness. The judge's gaze steadied on him. She has given you something that money cannot buy and arrogance cannot erase, mercy. Tyler looked up, eyes red. She forgave me? She asked that you be given the chance to change. But understand this, Caprio warned. Forgiveness is not the end of your sentence. It's the beginning of your responsibility. The court adjourned. The cameras cut off. But the real story, the one that would later touch millions online, was only beginning. That same afternoon, Tyler was escorted to Providence Children's Hospital to meet the volunteer coordinator. His father didn't say a word on the drive. His mother cried quietly. When Tyler stepped out of the car, the smell of antiseptic and the soft beeping of heart monitors hit him like a wall. He had never been inside a trauma unit before. He'd never seen pain up close. The coordinator, a gentle woman named Marianne, handed him a clipboard. You'll star in the recovery wing, she said kindly. You'll be helping with supplies, cleaning equipment, and spending time with the children. They don't need pity, Tyler. They need presence. He nodded. He didn't trust his voice to speak. That first day, Tyler met David, a 7-year-old boy in a wheelchair, legs bandaged, a smile far too bright for his condition. Hey, you're new. David grinned. You here to help out? Tyler forced a nod. Yeah, something like that. David pointed to a small toy car on his table. I used to love racing, but then a car hit ours. The boy's tone didn't carry bitterness, just simple truth. My mom says the driver didn't mean it, David added, shrugging. But I still can't run anymore. Tyler's throat tightened. His chest burned with shame. He tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. David tilted his head. Hey, it's okay, he said softly. At least you're here now, right? Trying to help. Those words, at least you're here now. They cracked something open inside Tyler Morrison. That night, when he got home, he didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He sat in his room, staring at his reflection in the dark window. The boy who had once bragged about escaping consequences was gone. All that remained was guilt and, for the first time, awareness. The next week, Tyler began writing his first letter to Mrs. Gonzalez. He stared at the blank page for almost an hour before the words finally came. Dear Mrs. Gonzalez, I don't know how to start a letter like this. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I didn't realize how much damage I caused until I saw those kids in the hospital. There's a boy named David who can't walk because of a driver like me. I think about you and Emma every day. I was selfish. I laughed when I should have cried. You didn't just get hurt. You could have died because of me, and still you showed mercy. I promise you, I'll spend every hour of my hospital work trying to earn what you've already given grace." He signed it, trembling. Sincerely, Tyler Morrison. Weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, something remarkable happened. The arrogance faded. The smirk never returned. Instead, Tyler became the boy who carried extra blankets to the children's wing, who stayed late to read bedtime stories, who learned the nurses' names. And every month, he sent another letter. And every month, Mrs. Gonzalez wrote back, short, gentle replies full of warmth and prayers. One of them read, "Tyler, forgiveness is not forgetting. It's choosing to believe you can still become good." Another said, "Emma is doing better. She's walking to school again, slowly but with courage. That's what I hope for you too." But behind all the growth, there was still guilt, and guilt, as Judge Caprio often said, is a teacher that never sleeps. One afternoon, after helping a child through a painful physical therapy session, Tyler broke down. He walked outside to the hospital garden and cried, really cried, for the first time in years. A volunteer found him and asked what was wrong. "I don't know how to make it right," he said, voice trembling. "No matter what I do, it's not enough." The volunteer smiled kindly. "Maybe it's not about making it right. Maybe it's about living right from now on." That single sentence would follow Tyler forever. Back in his chambers, Judge Caprio received regular reports from the hospital. Each one described a young man who was changing, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. 6 months into the program, the judge received another envelope. It was from Tyler. "Dear Judge Caprio, I wanted you to know I've finished my first month. There's a boy named David who forgave me without even knowing what I did. Mrs. Gonzalez writes to me every week. I still can't believe she's proud of me. I've stopped asking why she forgave me. I just want to live in a way that deserves it. Thank you for not giving up on me when I didn't deserve mercy." Caprio read that letter twice, then placed it beside Mrs. Gonzalez's, the two symbols of everything he stood for, justice and compassion. But even as redemption began to bloom, one test remained, because the road to true change is never straight. And when Tyler would soon face a moment of choice, a moment where his old arrogance would whisper again, everyone watching would wonder, had he truly changed, or was it all just another performance? It had been nearly a year since the day Tyler Morrison stood trembling in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. 12 months since the smirk vanished. 12 months since he uttered the words that had almost destroyed him. "You can't do anything to me." But now, that same boy, changed, quieter, humbler, walked the white halls of Providence Children's Hospital not as a punishment, but as a calling. He'd found something inside himself that neither privilege nor punishment could give him: purpose. Yet redemption, like truth, is never easy, and Tyler's final test was about to arrive when he least expected it. One crisp autumn morning, Tyler was helping Nurse Marion deliver medical files when a familiar sound stopped him cold. The sharp, squealing tires outside, the slam of a car door, the voices, angry, chaotic. He looked out the window and saw a scene that froze his blood. A black sedan had skidded into the hospital's crosswalk, just inches away from a mother and her child. The driver, a teenager barely older than he'd been, was shouting at the nurse who ran to help. Tyler rushed outside instinctively. "Hey, watch where you're going," the boy snapped at him, stepping out of the car. "I was just in a hurry." And there it was, the tone, the arrogance, the exact same entitlement that had once lived in Tyler's own voice. It was like looking into a mirror from a darker time. For a moment, Tyler felt the world tilt. His chest pounded with anger. Anger not at the boy, but at himself. Because he knew that once he'd been that boy. Do you even realize what could have happened? Tyler's voice cracked with emotion. "You could have killed someone." The teen rolled his eyes. "Relax, man. Nobody got hurt." Tyler's fists clenched. His entire body trembled, not from rage, but from recognition. He wanted to yell, to lecture, to grab the boy by the shoulders and make him understand. But then he remembered Judge Caprio's voice. Justice without teaching is just revenge. And in that instant, Tyler understood what his real lesson had been about. Later that day, he sat outside the hospital in the same garden where he had once cried months earlier. Nurse Marion approached quietly, setting a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said softly. Tyler shook his head. "I wanted to scream at him. I wanted him to feel small, the same way I felt that day in court." Marianne smiled knowingly. "Then you've already passed your tests." He looked at her, puzzled. "You didn't need to humiliate him, Tyler. You stopped him from making the same mistake you did. That's growth. That's redemption." Her words sank deep, but another part of him still ached. Because no matter how many hours he worked, no matter how many letters he wrote, Tyler still carried a memory of that terrified little girl, Emma, and her crossing guard, Mrs. Gonzalez. He wanted to see them, not to clear his conscience, but to face the truth one last time. 2 weeks later, with Judge Caprio's permission, that moment finally came. The meeting was arranged quietly, away from cameras, away from reporters. Tyler arrived early, dressed simply. No hoodie, no designer sneakers, no symbols of the old life. His hands trembled as he waited. When Mrs. Gonzalez entered the room, he stood up instantly. Time seemed to stop. She looked older than he remembered, still wearing her crossing guard vest proudly. Her kind eyes filled with a mix of strength and sorrow. Tyler opened his mouth, but his voice failed him. "Mrs. Gonzalez." She smiled gently. "I know who you are, Tyler." He blinked back tears. "I've written letters, but I needed to tell you in person. I was wrong. I was reckless. I could have taken your life, and I'll never forgive myself for that." Mrs. Gonzalez nodded slowly. "You don't have to forgive yourself yet. You just have to live differently." Then something happened no one expected. The door opened and Emma stepped in. The same little girl from that day, now 7, shy but brave, holding a small drawing in her hand. Tyler's breath caught. Emma walked up to him and handed him the drawing. A stick-figure picture of a boy standing beside a girl at a crosswalk. Above it, written in uneven crayon letters, were 3 words. "Safe now, thanks." Tears rolled freely down Tyler's face. He fell to his knees, speechless, overwhelmed. Mrs. Gonzalez knelt beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You see, Tyler," she whispered, "forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing not to stay angry forever. That's what gives both of us peace." The camera that had been quietly filming for Judge Caprio's record caught every moment. The trembling hands, the tears, the silent understanding between a boy once lost and the people he nearly destroyed. It would later become the most shared video and caught in Providence history. Not because of punishment, but because of grace. Back in his chambers, Judge Caprio watched the footage. His eyes glistened. He had seen thousands of cases. Pain, arrogance, tragedy. But few ever ended like this. He turned to his clerk. "You see that, Maria? That's why we do this work. Not to destroy people, but to rebuild them." He paused, gazing out the window toward the courthouse steps where so many had come to face justice. Every young person deserves to know that one mistake doesn't define their future, but only if they're willing to change. The next morning, Tyler stood once more in that familiar courtroom. Judge Caprio greeted him not as a defendant, but as a student who had completed the hardest lesson of his life. "Mr. Morrison," he said warmly, "I've read your final report from the hospital. You've completed every hour, every letter, every assignment. You've exceeded every expectation." Tyler stood straighter, tears glistening in his eyes. "Thank you, Your Honor, for everything." Caprio smiled. "You don't need to thank me, son. Thank the people who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself." He lifted the letter Mrs. Gonzalez had written months before and placed it beside Tyler's most recent one. "You see these?" he said, holding them up. "One is mercy. The other is remorse. Together, they make redemption." Then, softly, "Your driving privileges are hereby reinstated, effective on your 21st birthday, not because the law requires it, but because your heart has earned it." The courtroom broke into quiet applause. Even the officers smiled. But as Tyler turned to leave, Judge Caprio called out one last time, "Mr. Morrison, one more thing." Tyler stopped. "Yes, Your Honor?" I hope you'll come back someday, not as a defendant, but as an example. Tell others what you've learned. Tyler nodded. I will. I promise. And though the court session ended, the journey didn't. Because real change doesn't happen in a moment of judgment. It happens in the quiet days after, when no one's watching. Tyler Morrison had passed his test. But the greatest reward was yet to come. When the final day arrived, the courthouse looked different to Tyler Morrison. The marble floors no longer felt like a battlefield beneath his feet, but like sacred ground, the place where he had met truth, consequence, and grace. Reporters gathered once again. The world remembered the arrogant teen who had laughed at a judge. But what they would see today was not the same boy. The doors to Courtroom 6 opened. The cameras rolled. And standing beside his attorney, head high but humble, Tyler Morrison awaited the judge who had changed his life. Judge Frank Caprio entered with the same calm dignity that had captivated millions. But as he sat down, even the air felt heavier, as if every lesson from the past year had led to this very moment. Mr. Morrison, the judge began, his voice resonant but kind. 12 months ago you stood in this room and said something I'll never forget. You can't do anything to me. He paused. Today I'd like to ask, who can do something to you now? Tyler swallowed hard. My conscience, Your Honor, it does something to me every day. The judge's eyes softened. Good. That means it's alive. He lifted a sheet of paper, the hospital's report. You worked over 1,000 hours in the trauma unit. You read to children who may never walk again. You stayed late. You wrote letters, and you learned the difference between guilt and growth. Is all that true? Yes, Your Honor, Tyler replied. And I'll keep doing it, even after my sentence. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Then you've done something rare. You've transformed punishment into purpose. The gallery leaned forward. Every camera tightened its focus. The judge gestured toward a seat near the front row. Mrs. Gonzalez was there, smiling gently, and beside her sat Emma, clutching the same crayon drawing that had once made the world cry. Mr. Morrison, Caprio continued, these two came today not as victims, but as witnesses to your change. Mrs. Gonzalez stood. Your Honor, she said softly, I came to see the young man I forgave. I didn't expect to find the one who's teaching others how to be better. Even the bailiff wiped away a tear. Judge Caprio took a deep breath. In all my years on this bench, I've seen justice in many forms. Some people think justice is about punishment. I believe justice is about possibility. He raised his gavel. Tyler Morrison, your case is hereby closed. But your story, your lesson, is just beginning. The gavel came down once, softly, a sound that echoed far beyond the courtroom walls, through television screens, social feeds, and hearts around the world. Because in that single moment, justice didn't just punish a mistake. It redeemed a soul. As Tyler stepped forward to thank the judge, Caprio rose from his bench, something he rarely did, and shook his hand. You've proven that accountability and compassion can walk side by side, he said. Now use your story to remind others that second chances aren't free, they're earned. Tyler nodded, tears shining in his eyes. I will, Your Honor, every single day. The cameras captured that handshake, and within hours, the clip began spreading across YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Millions watched, millions shared, and millions commented the same thing. This restored my faith in humanity. Months later, Tyler founded the Gonzalez Foundation for Safe Driving, teaching teenagers about respect, empathy, and responsibility behind the wheel. Mrs. Gonzalez served as honorary chair. Emma drew the logo, and Judge Caprio, ever the mentor, watched quietly from his bench, proud but humble, knowing one truth better than anyone. Sometimes the most powerful sentence a judge can give is in jail. It's a chance to change. Epilogue, the legacy of a lesson. In a world quick to punish and slow to forgive, one courtroom in Providence reminded us that real justice is not vengeance. It's vision. The vision to see beyond mistakes, to see the human being still capable of growth. Judge Frank Caprio didn't just sentence a boy. He saved a future. And somewhere out there, a child crosses a street safely because one young man finally understood what his laughter had cost. If this true story of Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom compassion, real-life redemption, and second chances touched your heart, don't let it end here. Backhand Index Pointing Right subscribe now for more emotional courtroom stories, real justice moments, and life-changing verdicts that prove kindness and accountability can coexist. Speech balloon comment below. Do you believe everyone deserves a second chance? Thumbs up like if you believe that true justice is mercy in action. Bell turn on notifications so you never miss another Judge Frank Caprio inspirational story that restores your faith in humanity. Because sometimes, sparkling hard the greatest verdict isn't guilty or innocent. It's changed.